My family arranged a marriage to a duke no one had seen in years. When I arrived at his mansion, the servants refused to speak his name. "He sleeps during the day," they warned. That night, I woke to cold lips brushing my neck, a voice like a distant storm whispering, "I've waited so long for you." When I lit a candle, his face was inches from mine, and his eyes were black as the void. I never thought my life would take such a turn. Growing up in a small town in Pennsylvania, my days were filled with simplicity and routine. But everything changed when my parents informed me of an arranged marriage to a duke in Louisiana. They said it was to secure our family's future, to bring honor and stability. I was hesitant, but their insistence and the promise of a better life led me to agree. The journey to Louisiana was long and filled with anticipation. As I approached the grand mansion, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The estate was vast, surrounded by dense woods and an eerie silence. The servants greeted me with polite smiles but avoided mentioning the duke's name. "He sleeps during the day," they warned, their eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. The first night, I found it hard to sleep. The unfamiliar surroundings and the weight of my new reality kept me restless. Around midnight, I felt a cold breeze brush against my neck, followed by a whisper that sent chills down my spine, "I've waited so long for you." Startled, I lit a candle, and there he was, his face inches from mine, eyes black as the void. I screamed, but no sound came out. He vanished as quickly as he appeared, leaving me questioning my sanity. The next morning, I confronted the servants, but they dismissed my concerns, insisting I must have had a nightmare. But I knew what I saw. The discovery determined to uncover the truth, I began exploring the mansion during the day. In the library, I found old journals and letters hinting at the Duke's mysterious past. There were mentions of a curse, of a lineage tied to darkness. The more I read, the more I realized that my husband-to-be was not an ordinary man. One evening, I ventured into the forbidden wing of the mansion. The air was thick, and the silence was deafening. In one of the rooms, I found a portrait of the Duke, unchanged from the man I saw the night before. The date on the painting was from over a century ago. The confrontation that night, he came to me again. This time, I stood my ground. I demanded answers, and he revealed the truth. He was a vampire, cursed to live in darkness, waiting for a bride to share his eternal life. He claimed that our marriage would break the curse, that together we could start anew. I was torn between fear and fascination. The idea of immortality was tempting, but at what cost? I needed time to think, to understand what this meant for me. The decision days turned into weeks, and I found myself drawn to him. Despite his nature, he was kind, intelligent, and deeply lonely. I began to see beyond the darkness, to the man he once was. But the decision to join him in eternal life was not one to be taken lightly. I sought counsel from the local priest, who warned me of the dangers and the moral implications. He urged me to leave, to escape before it was too late. But my heart was conflicted. The revelation: one stormy night, I discovered a hidden chamber beneath the mansion. Inside, I found evidence of the Duke's past, letters from previous brides, all of whom had vanished without a trace. The realization hit me hard: I was not the first, and I might not be the last. I confronted him, demanding the truth. He confessed that the curse required a sacrifice, that each bride had to willingly join him in death to break the cycle. He claimed he loved me, that he couldn't bear to lose me like the others. The escape fear took over, and I knew I had to leave. With the help of a sympathetic servant, I planned my escape. On the night of the full moon, I fled into the woods, the Duke's anguished cries echoing behind me. I didn't look back. Now, I live in hiding, constantly looking over my shoulder. I don't know if he's still searching for me, but I can't shake the feeling that he's near. The memory of his cold lips and void-like eyes haunt me every night. It's been months since I left that mansion. I don't say his name. I won't. Not after what happened. I live in a small rental house in the outskirts of Asheville, North Carolina now. Quiet. Forest behind me. A town far enough from where it all began. I changed my hair. Got a new phone. I don't talk to my parents anymore. They think I betrayed the family by running. But they don't know what they sent me into. They never knew what he was. I thought I was safe. I tried to build a life. Started working part-time at a bookstore. The owner, Mr. Gilmore, was kind and never asked too many questions. I liked the silence. I liked stacking books, hearing the soft hum of music in the background. Some nights, I could almost believe everything was normal. Until 3 weeks ago, when I found a rose on my doorstep. A black rose. Just like the one he gave me the first night I arrived at his mansion. At first, I convinced myself it was a prank. Maybe someone thought it was a goth aesthetic thing. I threw it in the trash. Told myself it was nothing. But then, the next night, I heard tapping on my window. 3 soft taps. I lived on the 2nd floor. I didn't open the curtains. I couldn't. My hands shook so bad I dropped my phone trying to call someone. When I finally worked up the courage to look, there was nothing. Just a smear on the glass, something red, almost like blood, shaped like a thumbprint. After that night, things got worse. My reflection started acting off. I know that sounds crazy. I'm not imagining this. In the mirror, I'd turn my head, and the reflection wouldn't move. It would just stare. Its eyes darker than mine, its lips curved into the smallest, coldest smile. I stopped looking in mirrors. The shadows in the house got longer. Colder. I'd hear whispers in the vents. Scratching behind the walls. Sometimes it felt like something was sitting on my chest while I slept. Breathing just inches from my face. I stopped sleeping. Then came the dreams. They were always the same. I'm back at the mansion, standing at the edge of the grand staircase. The walls are bleeding. The chandeliers are swaying even though there's no wind. And at the bottom of the stairs, he stands. Not moving. Just staring. Mouth closed. Eyes black, so black they seem endless. I wake up drenched in sweat every time. I tried leaving town. I packed a bag, got in my car, and drove toward Tennessee. I barely made it 5 miles before a deer ran into the road. I swerved and crashed into a tree. No major injuries, but my car was totaled. When the police arrived, they found something odd. On the back seat, where I had laid my bag, there was another rose. Another black rose. No one could explain how it got there. The officer just said maybe it flew in through the broken window. But I knew better. That window had been rolled up. It was on the inside of the car. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and let them take me to the hospital. When I got home, my front door was wide open. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was touched. Except one thing. On the dining table, there was a candle. Black wax. Unlit. But there was writing carved into the table underneath it. We are bound. Since then, I haven't tried to leave again. I reached out to the only person who might know more than me, a former servant of the mansion named Ansel. I remembered him from the first week. He was one of the few who ever made eye contact with me. He had kind eyes, full of warning. It took a while to track him down. But I found him. Lives in a trailer near Lake Pontchartrain, Louisiana. I called from a burner phone. He didn't seem surprised. You left him, he said. That's not possible. He's not like others. You belong to him now. I asked what he meant, voice shaking. He told me the truth, something they all kept from me. The Duke, the one they never named, wasn't just cursed. He wasn't just a vampire. He was a collector. A being older than recorded time. Not from this world. Not exactly. He was human once, yes. A war general in the 1300s. But something found him on the battlefield, something that whispered promises of power, immortality, control. He took the offer. Became something else. He doesn't just drink blood. He takes essence. Memories. Emotions. Identity. And he can mark his chosen. Brand their soul, make it impossible for them to hide. Once that bond is formed, it never breaks. Death doesn't even end it. Ansel said no one ever escaped before. That maybe I had something he hadn't seen in centuries. But that also meant he would come harder, faster. More desperate. He's not chasing you because he's angry, Ansel said. He's chasing you because he's afraid. You're the only one who ever left. Before he hung up, he gave me one piece of advice. Don't trust your reflection. Don't trust your memories. And whatever you do, don't answer him when he speaks your name. Now I live in silence. I write things down to remember what's real. I avoid mirrors. I check my windows 3 times a night. I keep candles burning, always. But I feel him getting closer. And 2 nights ago, I slipped. I fell asleep. Only for a few minutes. When I woke up, there were muddy footprints in my hallway. And next to my bed, he left my old wedding dress. Still clean. Still white. Still stained with that faint smell of roses and earth. And on the mirror, written in something dark, was a single word, soon. I know this isn't over. He's coming. The day after I found the wedding dress in my room, I packed what little courage I had left and did something reckless. I went back. Not to the mansion, no. That place still lives in my nightmares. I went back to the archives at the old town hall in Lafayette. I needed answers. Something deeper than what Ansel gave me. I figured if the Duke had a name, a past, a real identity, I might find a way to break this curse. Or at least understand what the hell he was. The records were old. Dusty. Some pages were brittle, barely held together by time. But then I found it, an ancient land deed tied to the estate. The owner's name? Lord Adrien Valle. There were no birth records. No death certificate. Just mentions of his name over and over through the years, every few decades, like he'd resurface, always the same. A woman goes missing, or a new bride is listed as moving into the home. Then silence. Over and over. Patterns. I dug deeper. Spoke to an old historian who lived outside town. She'd studied folklore in Louisiana for 50 years. When I said his name, her eyes went wide. You shouldn't speak that name, she said, pulling her shawl close around her shoulders. He's not a man. Not anymore. You invited him by speaking it. You called him. I hadn't even realized I'd said it out loud. She gave me a key, an old iron thing, rusted and cold to the touch. Said it belonged to a chapel that burned down 100 years ago, near the estate. There's something buried beneath it, she said. Something that might end him. But it must be done on the night of a new moon. That night was tomorrow. I drove all night. Slept in my car at a gas station. Bought salt. Candles. Chalk. A hammer. I don't know what I was planning, but I knew I had to be ready. The chapel ruins were hidden deep in the woods behind the mansion. Overgrown, forgotten. The air was colder here, like it didn't belong to this season. I found the trapdoor beneath the altar, used the key, and climbed down into darkness. There were bones down there. Shelves of bones, wedding veils, faded photos. I was standing in a tomb of his brides. And in the center, there was a coffin. Ornate. Black wood with silver symbols I couldn't understand. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I needed to destroy it. As I raised the hammer, I heard him behind me. I hoped it wouldn't come to this, he said, voice smooth, sad. I turned. He looked the same, beautiful and terrible. Eyes like black holes. He stepped forward, slow, like he was walking through water. I waited centuries for someone like you, he said. You were the only one who looked back. I told him I wasn't his. I never was. You said, yes, the moment you entered that house, he whispered. The moment you saw me, even if you didn't speak the words. He raised a hand, and the candle I held snuffed out. I was in total darkness. And then, I felt it. Cold hands on my face. Lips brushing mine. Not a kiss. A claim. Come home, he breathed. You're the only thing that ever made me feel alive again. I dropped the hammer. But in that second, I reached into my coat and pulled the salt I'd packed. I threw it in his face. He screamed, an awful, deep roar like a cave collapsing, and staggered back. I grabbed the hammer and brought it down on the coffin. Once. Twice. The wood cracked. Light burst out from inside, burning red, angry. The tomb began to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling. The bones around me began to tremble. I struck it again. Suddenly, everything went silent. When I opened my eyes, he was gone. I don't remember walking out. I don't remember driving away. But I woke up back in Asheville, in my own bed, with dirt on my hands and blood under my nails. Everything felt normal again. For a while. Until I saw the newspaper. An estate in Virginia. A bride reported missing. The mansion looks just like his, different name, different family. But I knew. He wasn't dead. I didn't kill him. I just released him. And last night, I looked in the mirror again. It smiled first. Then it whispered, "You'll always be mine." I left the mirror. I covered it with a sheet and shoved it in the back of the closet. But mirrors are everywhere, store windows, car side views, even black screens that go dark. I couldn't escape him. Not anymore. Days went by. I stopped seeing people. Quit my job. I barely ate. Every night, I heard him closer. In the pipes. In the wind. In the tapping against my windows. Sometimes, I heard my own voice whispering things I'd never say. Then I started waking up in different places. On the floor. Outside. One time, I woke up at the edge of the woods behind my house, barefoot and shivering, holding a candle in my hand. I had no memory of how I got there. I went to a doctor. Told them I wasn't sleeping. Told them I felt like I was being followed. They asked about my stress levels. Prescribed something for anxiety. I didn't take it. I knew what this was. This wasn't stress. This was a possession. He wasn't just haunting me. He was in me. That night, I nailed every window shut. Salted the doorways. Lit candles in every room. I stayed awake as long as I could, sitting in the kitchen with a baseball bat in my hands. At 3:15 a.m., the lights went out. I heard footsteps upstairs. Heavy, slow. I stood. The bat felt like a twig. I crept to the stairs. The footsteps stopped. Then a whisper right behind me, "You came back to me." I turned, and saw myself. But it wasn't me. She wore my face. My clothes. But her eyes were solid black. Her mouth stretched into a smile too wide for any human face. I ran. Out the back door. Into the woods. I didn't stop until I reached the old church ruins again. I don't even remember driving. I must have walked for hours, barefoot. My feet were bleeding. My hands shaking. I thought, maybe if I burned it all down, destroyed every piece of him, I could end this. I found the trapdoor again. It was open this time. Inside, the coffin was gone. In its place, there was a mirror. Huge. Ornate. Old. And I saw myself inside it, dressed in white. Wearing the wedding dress. But in the reflection, I was smiling. And behind me stood him. Hands on my shoulders. Whispers pouring out of the glass. "You've already said yes," he said. I smashed the mirror with a rock. It screamed, not cracked, screamed, and the room turned red, like it was bleeding light. Then it went black. When I woke up, I was lying in my bed at home. Everything looked normal. Sunlight through the window. Birds singing. But something was off. Too quiet. Too still. I looked in the mirror. And I wasn't there. Just an empty room. I backed away, but I couldn't feel the floor under me. Couldn't feel anything. Because I wasn't in the room anymore. I was in the mirror. I was trapped. And in the real world, something else, something wearing me, turned to the door and said, in my voice, "He's waiting for you now." And smiled.